Hey guys, it's Chris. From machines that put out fires to ones that can carry incredible loads, get snow off tracks, and more. Join me as I show you 9 incredibly insane industrial machines. Number 9. The Giant Bucket Wheel Excavator. The Bagger 293, as the machine is officially known, was built in 1995 by German engineers. Just the scope of this machine is both imposing and bizarre, as it stands over 300 feet in height while also being over 740 feet long end to end. As for the weight, the machine is so massive it weighs over 30 million pounds. The purpose of the machine is simple. It's a very literal earth mover. It's put into mining areas and it's able to get through 8.5 million cubic feet of earth a day, thus allowing the miners quicker access to the valuable materials they're working for. If you wish to compare that number to something, that amount of dirt would be about the length of a football field that's also 80 feet deep. However, while its size is very impressive and important to the function of the machine, it's also its biggest downfall, as the Bagger 293 is not easy to move and cannot be easily pushed around an obstacle. It also has been noted to be not very accurate when it moves dirt, as it can sometimes pick up machines while trying to do work. Despite the flaws, though, and the size, it only takes a 5-man team to run it, which is rather small considering the size, length, power, and weight this machine has. Number 8. Big Wind. As anyone who has dealt with a fire will no doubt tell you, putting out a fire that is spread very fast is a very dangerous and hard task, to the extent that even dedicated firefighting teams with dedicated equipment to put fires out don't always succeed. That's where the machine known as the Big Wind comes in, albeit in specific circumstances. Speaking of circumstances, the circumstances around the building of the Big Wind weren't what you might expect. It was built by a team of Hungarian engineers who took 2 massive jet engines and put them on top of a tank. Then they put 6 hoses around each engine, so when the hoses in the engines were turned on, a massive torrent of water would be unleashed. Yet the intent wasn't to put out fires, but rather to clean tanks, which is unique to say the least. Yet when they saw it in action, they realized that these could put out fires fast with the unyielding flow of water being poured on them, which is more than even water-pouring helicopters and planes can do. However, while there's no doubt that the Big Wind could douse a fire outdoors, it cannot be used in many different circumstances involving fire, as the water pressure alone would destroy buildings as it puts out the fires. Due to this, the Big Wind is used for putting out oil well fires, which are notoriously hard to put out with basic equipment. Number 7. Train Snowblower. Trains have been a major mode of transportation for the United States for about 2 centuries. They not only would help deliver people, but items of interest across the country, especially with the rise of the transcontinental railroad. However, not unlike other modes of transportation, they're affected by the weather, and snow is the deadliest of things a train can face. This is because if snow packs up too high on a train track, it can cause a derailment and, of course, delay the shipping or transportation of items and people. As such, a set of devices were created to go and make the snow not an issue. At first, wedges were attached to the trains, but they couldn't handle the deep snow. As such, the train snowblower and rotary snowplow were created. These were enlisted back in the 1920s, and they first ran on steam power, but were eventually changed to diesel. They're able to mow down snow on the tracks and push it off to the side via a blower on the side of the train. The only problem with them is they can be quite costly, and as such they haven't been in as much action as they were before the turn of the century. But if you were to see one in action, you can see why they were used for many decades. Number 6. G175 Tree Crusher. When you hear the name tree crusher, you usually will picture something long and tall to take down trees one at a time. But that's not the case with the G175 tree crusher that was built in the 1960s. Just take a look at it here. Yes, that is truly the scale of the beast that is this insane industrial machine. But that begs another question entirely. What was the purpose or need for such a large tree crusher? Weirdly enough, it wasn't built for industry at first. It was built for war. In the 1960s, the United States was in the Vietnam War, and it was a war that had one thing above all else: jungle warfare. The thick forests had trees that could hide just about anything, from troops to traps and more. So thus, the United States employed everything and anything to try and take the trees down so they could have a more open field of combat. Flamethrowers were used a lot, but it wasn't enough. So the G175 tree crusher was made to help crush and remove large swatches of trees so they could be out of the play. It was 56 feet long, 35 feet wide, and 21 feet tall. The giant weighs 175 tons and entails two V12 diesel Cummins engines delivering over 1,400 horsepower. That's enough to roll over any landscape or forest. Of course, the true irony of this beast was that despite it being effective in what it was designed to do, it really didn't turn the tide of the war, and thus the United States was forced to withdraw from the region. Number 5. SAVANNAH Global Model 1720. If you were to look at the SAVANNAH Global Model 1720, you might not immediately be able to understand what this particular device is, specifically because of the rather extreme and menacing blades that are attached to the tractor that's pulling them. Believe it or not, this is a method used to get tree stumps out of the ground. Not only doing that, but doing it with incredible efficiency and without wasting a lot of time. In fact, you can go over an area full of stumps and have them up in seconds. But you might be thinking, but why would anyone need to do this, let alone on a farm? That's because trees are notorious for having deep roots. And while it's not impossible for a person to do this on their own, it's going to take a lot longer and need a larger array of tools. With the SAVANNAH Global Model 1720, they're able to not just dredge them up, but they'll be much easier to get rid of, and the ground will now be able to be used for other purposes. This is perfect for farmers and others who either harvest trees or have cut them down recently in order to expand their land. Number 4. Built ATL. At first glance, the built ATL looks like just another piece of excavation equipment, but if you watch it work, you'll notice something very peculiar. Mainly, this machine doesn't have a pilot. That's because the team at Built Robotics have made a machine that can work autonomously on the worksite without much issue or input from its owner. In short, the driver uses a special device to input exactly what it needs the Built ATL to do, and then the machine will just go and do that. It'll use state-of-the-art GPS software and other sensors to make sure that it doesn't go over what it was told to do, as well as make sure that it's in the right position. This can make the workplace safer, more efficient, and get jobs done with more precision and less human error. It should be noted that this device will need a supervisor, but only in the sense that it needs to be watched over to make sure it doesn't glitch. Built Robotics is aiming to make a large line of these industrial tools, and if so, it could be the new face of construction. The Built ATL is already in use in places like San Francisco, proving that it is field-worthy. Number 3. QUICKFENCER. Imagine this, you've just gotten a farm, and you want to make sure that your cattle and other animals stay within the boundary, while also making sure that other animals don't get in to mess with both you and your flock. Making a fence is the logical answer, but getting one up can be time-consuming and problematic. Enter QUICKFENCER. This may look like an odd construction item, but in fact, it's an attachment that can be put on the front of a tractor and used to perfectly place and tension spools of wire fencing as you take it from point to point. To save even more time, the machine can hold 2 500-meter rolls, up to 7 barbed wire attachments, and multiple plain wires. The QUICKFENCER fencing machine is ideal for the erection of any type of fencing: stock fencing, ranch fencing, cattle fencing, sheep fencing, horse fencing, and deer fencing. Because you're using the tractor as the base to move it, you won't have to worry about keeping constant tension. And once you reach the end of your line, it's easy to attach the wires to a post and move on. So no matter what kind of fence you need, or however big it needs to be, the QUICKFENCER can help you get it done quickly without much pressure on you. Number 2. MGMS TRACKYWay. Question: what do you do when you need to get to an area that doesn't have a true road? The answer would be to make your own road, but that has its own set of problems. That is, unless you have the MGMS TRACKYWay, a vehicle that'll literally let you lay down a temporary road for wherever you may need to be going to. MGMS stands for Medium Ground Mobility Solution, a perfect way to describe what the machine does. To put it basically, a spool of aluminum road is put onto a truck or tractor, then taken to the appropriate area that needs to have a road. When it's time, a two-man team can easily unspool the road in under 6 minutes, then use as many spools as they may need to make a road that'll cover up the uneven or dangerous terrain and allow vehicles of all kinds to pass over without any issue. Once the road is no longer needed, it can be spooled back up and taken to its next job. Number 1. Zipper Truck System. This particular truck may not look like the most intimidating thing in the world, but it's one that has a very unique function. It builds tunnels in record time. How? Well, simple. It acts as a base for concrete tunnels. The truck is rolled in, the pre-made pieces are put on top of its frame, and then they're locked together via fixtures that seal them in place without the need for adhesive or curing time. The result is a truck that can be easily driven to various tunnel-needing locations. And when all is said and done, a tunnel is made in record time, with little risk and no wait time. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these monster machines? Would you be willing to put yourself into the driver's seat of any of them? Do you know of any other ones that could have been on the list? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to World List, and I'll see you next time on the channel.